The street was quiet, the glow of streetlights reflecting off the wet asphalt, when a sleek black SUV pulled into view. Inside sat a woman, confident, almost untouchable, shielded by her connection to law enforcement. But as the patrol car stopped behind her, what seemed like a routine traffic check quickly turned into a moment that would expose surprising truths about U.S. driving law. Here's the question for you. Do you think anyone, regardless of their connections, can legally be untouchable on the road? Let me know your answer in the comments below. According to official records from the local police department, the stop began over a minor traffic violation, a misaligned taillight. Witness statements indicate that the driver initially challenged the officer, asserting that the stop was unnecessary. The officer, however, followed proper procedure, citing applicable state driving law statutes. One interpretation of the law is that no individual, no matter their personal connections, is exempt from traffic regulations. Another perspective raised by legal analysts is that perceived authority or personal relationships may influence the interaction, though the underlying legal obligations remain unchanged. Throughout the stop, several key moments illustrate the subtle complexities of driving law enforcement. The dialogue between the driver and officer, the officer's adherence to procedure, and the ultimate citation all reflect the legal boundaries that govern traffic stops in the United States. In my legal analysis, this event highlights the importance of understanding driving law, not just to avoid fines, but to recognize situations where assumptions of immunity could have serious consequences. U.S. traffic law, grounded in state and federal statutes, is designed to apply equally to every driver, emphasizing accountability over status. Given these facts, do you think the officer acted entirely within legal boundaries, or did this incident reveal potential gaps in how driving law is enforced? Share your thoughts in the comments. As the traffic stop unfolded, the subtle tension became apparent. The officer approached the vehicle with caution, observing both the driver and the passenger. According to official statements, the driver's initial comments suggested a belief that her connection to law enforcement placed her above routine traffic checks. However, state driving law is explicit. All drivers must comply with lawful stops, regardless of personal status or perceived influence. The dialogue was captured on dashcam audio, which shows the driver questioning the reason for the stop, saying, "Do you really need to pull me over for this?" The officer responded calmly, citing the relevant driving law that governs vehicle equipment violations and safe operation on public roads. These moments illustrate how legal procedure is designed to protect both officers and motorists while ensuring compliance with the law. One turning point occurred when the officer requested the driver's license and registration. The driver hesitated, asserting, "I don't think you can do this to me," suggesting a perception of immunity. In legal analysis, hesitation like this can escalate a stop unnecessarily, but officers are trained to continue the process in strict accordance with statutory requirements. Here, the dashcam provides irrefutable evidence that the officer followed the legal framework, supporting accountability and fairness. The passenger, whose identity remains confidential in public records, also reacted visibly, highlighting how traffic stops can be emotionally charged. According to legal experts, such emotional reactions are common, yet the law requires objective enforcement. The U.S. driving law does not provide exemptions based on personal or familial relationships with law enforcement. Compliance is universal. During the citation process, the officer carefully explained the infraction, ensuring the driver understood the legal implications. According to the department, this approach aligns with best practices for minimizing liability and maintaining procedural integrity. One interpretation by attorneys is that transparency and clear communication prevent misunderstandings that could lead to litigation. Another perspective is that some drivers may intentionally test boundaries, making adherence to driving law even more critical for both parties. This traffic stop also reveals the importance of constitutional awareness. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, but routine traffic stops are legally considered reasonable when there is probable cause, such as a malfunctioning taillight. Courts have consistently upheld that no driver, regardless of personal connections, is exempt from these provisions. The stop serves as a real-world example of constitutional law in action, demonstrating both rights and responsibilities. Observers watching the dashcam footage note the professionalism of the officer, maintaining composure despite provocative remarks. This underscores a broader legal lesson. In traffic law enforcement, adherence to procedure is paramount, and personal assumptions about immunity cannot override statutory obligations. In my legal analysis, drivers who believe they are untouchable risk escalating minor infractions into situations with legal consequences, including fines, citations, or additional scrutiny. Given these detailed observations, here is another question for the audience. Do you think the driver's sense of immunity influenced the officer's approach, or did strict adherence to driving law prevent bias? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As the encounter progressed, the dynamics inside the vehicle became increasingly tense. The officer, maintaining strict adherence to protocol, continued requesting identification and vehicle documentation. According to official records, the driver's tone remained confident, almost defiant, reflecting her belief that personal connections might shield her from standard enforcement. Yet, state and federal driving law clearly dictate that compliance with lawful stops is mandatory for all drivers, regardless of perceived status. The officer's dashcam captured every exchange. Statements like, "I don't think this applies to me," illustrate a common misconception that personal relationships or familiarity with law enforcement can exempt one from statutory obligations. Legal analysts note that such assertions, while emotionally charged, carry no weight under the law. This scenario serves as a real-world example of the principle that driving law applies equally to all drivers on public roads. One particularly pivotal moment occurred when the officer pointed out the specific violation, a taillight not functioning properly. This minor infraction, while seemingly trivial, is codified in state driving law as a legitimate cause for a traffic stop. The officer meticulously explained the legal basis for the stop, referencing the statute that mandates vehicle equipment standards. Here, the law intersects with practical enforcement. Even minor violations can trigger legal obligations that cannot be ignored. According to statements from the local department, the officer handled the interaction in a manner consistent with best practices, calmly, professionally, and with full documentation of the encounter. This approach reduces potential liability for the department and ensures that any subsequent legal proceedings are supported by clear evidence. In my legal analysis, the officer's adherence to procedure exemplifies how traffic stops function as both enforcement and accountability mechanisms under U.S. law. The driver's response highlights another aspect of traffic law enforcement: perception versus reality. Believing oneself to be untouchable can lead to challenges that escalate otherwise routine stops. Legal scholars often emphasize that understanding one's rights and obligations under driving law is essential not only to avoid penalties, but also to navigate interactions safely and respectfully. Misunderstanding these boundaries can result in citations, fines, or more serious consequences if the situation intensifies. Observers reviewing dashcam footage and public records noted that the officer remained composed throughout the exchange, refraining from unnecessary confrontation while ensuring compliance with driving law. This is particularly significant given the social dynamics involved. An individual connected to law enforcement may assume leniency, but the law does not bend to personal connections. Courts have consistently upheld that equal application of driving law is a foundational principle, supporting fairness and public safety. As the stop concluded, the officer issued a citation for the taillight violation, documenting the encounter meticulously. The driver's initial perception of immunity did not prevent the lawful enforcement of driving regulations. This incident underscores a critical takeaway for all motorists. Awareness of driving law, understanding procedural rights, and respectful compliance are crucial, irrespective of personal connections or perceived influence. Now let me ask you another question to consider. Do you believe that the outcome would have been different if the driver had complied immediately? Or does perceived status often influence how stops unfold? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As the night wore on, the stop revealed more than just a simple equipment violation. It exposed how assumptions of immunity can intersect with the strictures of U.S. driving law. According to official reports, the driver repeatedly emphasized her connection to law enforcement, stating that she believed she should not be subjected to routine checks. However, state driving statutes are clear. No personal or familial connection provides exemption from traffic regulations. The officer carefully documented each interaction, explaining the violation and referencing the exact sections of the driving law that applied. Legal experts note that thorough documentation is critical in these situations, both for protecting the officer and for upholding the rule of law. One interpretation is that the officer's adherence to procedure demonstrates how professional law enforcement can enforce driving law impartially, regardless of social dynamics. Another perspective raised by some attorneys is that the driver's perception of immunity could have led to escalation if the officer had not maintained composure. During the stop, multiple key moments highlighted the balance between civil rights and public safety. For example, when asked about the citation, the driver questioned, "Do you really have the authority to do this to me?" Here, the Fourth Amendment provides protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. But courts have consistently ruled that traffic stops for equipment violations, probable cause, or minor infractions are legally permissible. This stop is a textbook example of constitutional law applied in real-world scenarios, where legal obligations take precedence over social assumptions. Dashcam and bodycam footage, released under public records, reveal that the officer followed all procedural requirements. The driver's continued resistance did not change the law. Rather, it provided a clear case study for understanding how driving law functions in practice. The citation itself was issued in strict compliance with state traffic code, and all procedural safeguards were observed, ensuring that the stop could withstand any legal review or challenge. From a legal standpoint, this incident also demonstrates the importance of understanding both rights and responsibilities under driving law. Many drivers overestimate personal protections, assuming status or connections allow them to bypass legal obligations. In reality, the law is designed to apply uniformly, and violations, even minor ones, can trigger official enforcement. The officer's methodical approach shows how proper adherence to driving law protects not just the integrity of law enforcement, but also the safety of all road users. For drivers watching this, the takeaway is clear. Assumptions of immunity can be dangerous. Knowing the exact provisions of driving law, understanding constitutional protections, and maintaining respectful compliance are essential. Failure to do so can escalate minor infractions into more serious encounters, potentially resulting in citations, fines, or further legal scrutiny. Now, consider this question carefully. If you were in this situation, would knowing your legal rights under driving law change how you respond to a traffic stop, or do social assumptions often override legal knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As the stop concluded, the officer returned the license and registration and explained the citation process, emphasizing transparency and legal compliance. This moment reinforced the broader lesson. Driving law is universal, and no individual is above it, regardless of personal connections. Dashcam footage and official records will serve as a reference for both legal analysts and drivers seeking to understand the boundaries of lawful conduct during traffic stops. In my legal analysis, this incident underscores an important principle. Lawful enforcement relies on procedure, impartiality, and clarity. By adhering to these standards, officers ensure that personal perceptions or social assumptions do not interfere with the equal application of driving law. For every driver, this is a reminder that understanding your rights and responsibilities is not optional, it is essential. Given all the facts, here's one final question for reflection. Do you think social status influences traffic stop outcomes more than the law itself, or does strict adherence to driving law truly level the playing field? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.